Okay, so job interview 101. We need to start before you even consider an interview. Your interview starts before you even step in the door of the place that you're going to interview. There are a bunch of things that you need to actually complete prior to the interview or prior to applying to a job even. Step number 1, create a professional resume. You've done that, right? You've made a resume, and you're going to continue to add to that resume as your high school life continues. And when you go to college and you're getting jobs to support yourself through college, you will continue to add to that resume as well. Some of our guest speakers have talked about resumes. Actually, all of them have talked about resumes. It's something that's real and something that is very much used to represent you in your professional life. For your resume, be sure that it looks professional. Find ways to demonstrate your skills. Provide a window to the type of worker you're going to be by having it organized, detailed, and without errors. I spoke to you in depth about that, how what your resume looks like completely represents who you are. Even if it doesn't, that's what it's going to look like. Number 2, once you've created that resume, you need to research your desired positions. Some topics that you could research: duties of the position. It's good to know what it is that you're going to be doing in that job. Compensation range. What is the amount of money you're going to be making the day you start? What is the amount of money that you're going to be making in the middle? And then what is ultimately the amount of money you're going to be making in the end? It's important to know that, because as you get older, you're going to want to be making a little bit more money. You're going to have houses to pay for. You're going to have cars and children to pay for. You're going to have things that you're going to have to be making that money. So if you're going to have dreams of living in a $500,000 house, you are most definitely not going to want to make $30,000 a year. You're going to have to balance your dreams with a realistic position. Location. That's really cool if you want to be an astronaut, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're probably not going to live in Westphalia and be an astronaut. Okay? It's just not a position that is around here. I have a friend who is he is a hunting tour guide. He had to move to Wyoming for that. Okay? So where are the locations? The schedules. If you're someone who wants nights and weekends off, you probably shouldn't be a hairstylist because they work a lot of nights and weekends. Okay, so you have to know these things. Benefits. Insurance is 100% necessary. Does your job offer insurance? Does it have vacation time? Does it offer you a retirement package, 401k, pension? Those are all really important things to know about the job that you want. Now, once you've researched the job, you then have to research the specific companies. Things you should know or do before applying. You should probably know the name of the company. I know that sounds silly, but sometimes people don't even look at the names of the places they're applying. Is it public or private? If it's a public entity, it's going to be a little bit different rules than if it's a private entity. What products or services are available? Who is the management team? Who's in charge? Who's the person you'd be reporting to? Who is the person that is in charge of human resources? Is there a big boss, someone under them? Who is it that is going to be on your team if you work there? You need to access the company website. Anymore in today's world, I would say 95% of businesses or companies have websites. And the ones who don't tend to have a Facebook or something like that that you can look at. It is very smart to look at their website or their Facebook or whatever they have available for you to research. Ask job recruiters about the company. There are job recruiters that you can talk to. If it's a really well reputable company, then job recruiters will know about it. Find the company's mission statement. Usually their mission statement can kind of tell you about the character of the company and their values and beliefs. If you're someone who plans on having a family and this company's mission statement is all about working hard and having no personal time, might be a little bit of a conflict of interest. And lastly, try to speak to someone who already works at that company. If you can get lucky enough to find somebody who works at that company, they're probably going to be honest with you about their situation. So that's super important to be able to do that. Okay, once you've done that, then you can apply. Locate the online application. Include your resume. And you need to follow up in 3 to 5 business days with human resources or a person in charge of interviewing to be sure your application was received. You don't ever want to be in the position where you sent in your application and you never hear back and come to find there was a technical glitch and your application didn't submit, right? You want to follow up and make sure that your application is submitted. And then comes preparing for the interview. So all of those things have to be done before you even apply or before you even do the actual interview. That's a lot of things. So now how to prepare for your interview. First of all, you guys need to map out the route to where your interview is located. My first job, my first job in Kansas City, I had just moved there and I went to go to my interview that day and I could not find the place. I could not find it. I drove around for an hour. I finally called them and said, I don't know where you're at. Okay, clearly I did not get that job. Why? Because I didn't plan ahead to see where the location was so I could call and find out where they're at before the interview. You need to make sure you know where you're going so you're not late. Ask a trusted person's opinion about your planned attire for the interview. I used to interview people to come work at the college that I went to. We had a student interview team and we would interview professors who wanted to be professors at the college. And one time we had a professor show up in his swim trunks because he was on his way to the beach and he wanted to hit his interview up before he made it to the beach. Okay? It was not professional whatsoever. You need to make sure that what you wear represents you in your best light. You need to practice answering probable questions so you're less nervous. If you had a big presentation to do, most of you, not all, but most of you would try to practice or rehearse it ahead of time, correct? So you should do the same thing for a job interview. You should practice and rehearse commonly asked questions so that way you're ready. And finally, you should think of 2 questions that you would like to ask the interview team about the job or company. When you ask a question at the end of the interview, and they will ask you, do you have any questions? If you say no, it makes it look like you haven't been truly considering the position. If you have a question, it looks like you've actually been pondering and researching and looking for information on this, and it shows your seriousness. So think of 2 questions, because most likely one of those questions will be answered in the interview, and that'll give you a backup. Once you're in an interview, it's really important that you know your rights. It is super important that you know that even though you're being interviewed, you still have rights as an interviewee. You need to know the difference between illegal and legal questions. Employers can absolutely not ask you about certain topics as they're considered discriminatory and could lead the company into legal trouble, meaning that you could take the company and sue them for discrimination based on the questions that they're asking you. I bring this up because this has happened in the past. People have been discriminated against because of their sex, because of their religion, because of their disability, because of age, because of race. These things happen. So you need to know if that's you. So we're going to practice for a second. And what I want you to do is I'm going to read the question, and you're going to raise your hand if you think it's illegal. Number 1, that is an unusual name. Are you Polish? Raise your hand if you think it is illegal. Correct. It is illegal because they are asking you about your heritage, right? Basically. And what if that person hates Polish people? Okay? If you are identified as a Polish person, therefore they could discriminate against you. Number 2, how would you describe yourself? Please raise your hand if you think that is illegal. Correct. That is not illegal. That is just a common interview question asking you to describe yourself. If you choose to disclose that you are Polish or German, then that is your choice at that point. What are you, about 50? Please raise your hand if you think that's illegal. Yes, that is illegal because somebody could think to themselves, gosh, that person is too old for this job and they're going to retire soon, and we don't want someone to be hired who's going to leave us soon. Number 4, will your family obligations prevent you from meeting work requirements? Raise your hand if you think that is illegal. It is illegal to ask that because if you are applying for the job, your family should have nothing to do with whether you can commit or perform the required tasks. If later down the road you're doing the job and you are not doing the job, right, because of issues, then disciplinary action can be taken. But they cannot assume because you have a family that you're not going to be able to complete the tasks. What is your biggest weakness? Raise your hand if you think this is an illegal question. It is not an illegal question. And in fact, it is one of the most commonly asked questions. I see you grew up in Utah. Are you Mormon? Yes, that is illegal. You cannot ask about a person's religion or religious practices. Okay, commonly asked questions. The first one is, tell me about yourself. Do not ramble. Stay focused on your best qualities. Clearly, I didn't know how to spell right here. What are your strengths? Make sure you pick 2 strengths before the interview to discuss, and make sure those strengths are applicable to the job. So if you're going to be applying for a leadership position, obviously you should talk about your leadership and organization skills or teamwork skills, right? If you're going to be talking about a physical labor job, you should probably talk about your physical strength as one of your strengths. What are your weaknesses? Try to make your weaknesses be something admirable, such as, I tend to work too hard. I tend to care too much about people. I tend to try and make everything perfect. Don't use a weakness that they can use against you, like, well, I usually don't show up on time. Or, yeah, I really hate people. Okay, those are typically not going to speak well about you. What they're looking for here is for you to be hard on yourself about something. How would your current or last boss describe you? Be honest, because they'll probably call them. Describe a conflict or disagreement you have had at work. Make sure you take some of the blame and do not speak negatively about anyone. Just give the facts. Why should we hire you over other people for this job? This is the time for you to have a statement prepared about how you differ, such as leadership, honesty, hard work, and motivation.